Thank you all. I'd like to thank Judy for giving me this opportunity to inform and cajole you with some stories of my past theater exploits and to share you a bit about their core subject, social change in theater. I was dismayed there wasn't a single group protesting my lecture today. Certainly there must be someone who could take an offense at an old fat white guy speaking about social change in theater at a liberal arts college. I was going to distribute some pages for some scenes, but because of time, I think I'll cut. I wanted to do the scene of Romeo, the final scenes of Romeo and Juliet, and then a piece that I wrote. But I'll hold off. If there's time, maybe we can do some of those. I didn't start out in theater. I was actually a fast-talking kid magician. Between the ages of 15 and 18, I performed at every Cub and Boy Scout, jamboree, father-daughter banquet, Eastern Star Mothers within 100 miles of my small Michigan town. I started out doing kids' birthday parties. Later on in my career, it kind of went downhill and I did sleazy nightclubs. And then it really deteriorated and I ended up doing sleazy children's parties. I guess speaking here, I guess my career has come full circle. My 40 years of theater began in Santa Barbara as an actor. The first show I ever acted in was called My Fair Dracula, a musical comedy, at the Circle Barbie Guest Ranch in northern Santa Barbara County. This was just a stone throw from President Reagan's ranch. I followed this stellar theatrical performance with Neil Simon's Come Blow Your Horn playing Buddy. From the Circle Barbie, I began working at a new dinner theater called the Le Petit Cabaret in downtown Santa Barbara. After acting in a couple shows, I did my first directing gig, which was for No No, A Million Times No, a musical melodrama with an oleo. The term oleo, in case you don't know, comes from vaudeville, and the drop curtain between these specialty acts was actually painted with commercials for oleo margarine. And that, in the play, I played the part of Noble Heart, the hero, and in the oleo, I did parts of my old magic act. I went on to direct about 20 plays at the cabaret and learned about set design and construction. This skill would keep me working in theater for the next 30 years. After 8 years in Santa Barbara, I left for Los Angeles to follow my dream of being a stand-up comic. I worked at this for about 8 years, but continued doing theater direction and set design as a nighttime job, as it takes years to get to the coveted weekend spots in stand-up comedy. I finally ended up booking college comedy shows, acting as the MC. During this time, I directed and constructed over 30 equity waiver shows. My first job came as a technical director for the La Mirada Civic Theater Broadway series. Season include Larry Shue's The Foreigner with Gary Sandy, Little Shop of Horrors with Adrienne Barbeau, Biloxi Blues with Ted Lang, and several others. My job as technical director is basically a liaison between the designer and the construction crew. Dr. Silkini's Great Ghost Show was my first, at the Las Palmas Theater, was my first equity show. I was stage manager and lighting operator. The show was a recreation of the 1940s traveling show that ended up with the famous monsters of the day, Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Mummy appearing on stage and then making their way into the audience to the screams of the crowd. To update the show, they used monsters from films, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Freddy Krueger. I was fortunate to get a job in theater department at USC as scene shop foreman. We had a schedule of 60 shows a year. 5 were at the Bing main stage, and the rest all worked at 2 smaller theaters. The 100-seat theaters only did a show only ran 1 week. So there was a load in and load out of 2 days for all the shows they did there. The first year I also worked behind the scenes as a prop or scenery mover for the USC opera program. They did Don Giovanni and Benjamin Britt's Billy Budd. Turned out to be a great insight into opera. And sitting backstage for 16 performances made me dislike opera even more than I already did. The following summer, I was technical director for the Kent State University summer program, where I oversaw a 5-show season. I've done 2 off-Broadway shows in New York, an original murder mystery, Who Done It, and John Patrick Shanley's of Moonstruck fame show. I also produced and directed a couple shows in Santa Barbara. After that, I started my own company, but I still managed to design and build sets for BET television and several music videos. I'm kind of editing here as I go. Last year I worked with an alum here on his graduate film production, built set pieces and props for this talent maker. He's a good friend and my videographer today, Matt Thompson. In case you don't know Matt, he was chosen as one of the top 100 film students to watch by Variety magazine. Any actors in this class should probably drop off a resume and headshot. I've listed these credits kind of as a word of advice that no matter what you do in theater, technical jobs are paid gigs. So whether it's construction, makeup, scenic design, director, set construction, or lighting design, these jobs pay. So don't be afraid to venture out and get some practical experience in these. They can be rewarding, and again, they pay. As the actor at the after show party said, that's enough of me talking about me. What did you think of my performance? To get to the real reason I'm here is to talk about suicide and social change in theater. Before I talk about its current use, I wanted to talk about historical use of suicide in theater. Presently, this concept is used more as a deterrent and explanation of the who's and whys of suicide. But in history, it was generally used as a plot point, or more often than not, as a resolution in a play to punish or resolve a character's misguided deeds. First example was probably Sophocles. In Oedipus, first performed in 5th century BC, Oedipus' mother, Jocasta, hangs herself after finding out that Oedipus has killed her husband and then has slept with him. Oedipus does not get out unscathed as he gouges out his eyes and then is exiled. The ending line spoken by the chorus is left on the unhappy note, no man should consider himself fortunate until he is dead. This is not a statement deterring people from suicide. Sophocles revisits this in Antigone where she hangs herself, and again in Ajax who kills himself by falling on his sword. 2,000 years later, Shakespeare picked up the mantle and he works by using suicide per scholars 13 times, with 8 more considered as possible suicides. Some of the Shakespeare characters, Cassius, who being pursued by Cleopatra and Antony, runs onto his sword, and Brutus does the same, but he has the servant hold his sword. Brutus's wife Portia also kills herself, a gruesome threesome of suicide, all in Julius Caesar. For Mark Antony and Cleopatra, both of the title characters end their own lives. Mark Antony, again by falling on his sword, or he still manages to make one final visit to Cleopatra. The Egyptian queen meets her doom by applying one asp to her breast, bemoaning, why thy sharp teeth this not intrinsic at life once untie? For poor venomous fool, be angry and dispatch. O could thou speak, that I might hear the call great Caesar's asked, unpolicied. The chairman explained, O Eastern Star, which follows with the queen's line, dost thou not see my baby at my breast, that sucks the nurse asleep? As sweet as balm, as soft as hair, as gentle as, O Anthony, nay, I will take thee too. She then releases a second asp which bites her arm and finishes with one of the bard's all-time understatements when Cleopatra remarks, what should I say? And then dies. We are told in Act 5 that Lady Macbeth is dead, but not until the end of the play we hear the line, this fiend-like queen, who as 'tis thought by self in violent hands, took her own life. In Timon of Athens, Timon, after wandering through the wilderness, can no longer take the hypocrisy of mankind and is found dead in a cave, an apparent suicide. Perhaps the darkest of Shakespeare's dramas is Othello. Near the end of the play, Othello, believing his wife Desdemona is guilty of adultery, kills her by stabbing her. When he finds out she is innocent, his final line ends with, I took by the throat this circumcised dog, and thus. He then stabs himself. Lear's depraved daughter Goneril and her husband, the Duke of Albany, both commit commit suicide when their nefarious plot against Lear are exposed. Ophelia's Hamlet's potential wife plunges to her death from a branch, and although it may be an accident, she makes no effort to save herself. And this was a scene I was going to have a couple of you read, but probably the mother of all suicides is Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, who both take their lives, as you know. Judy said you've watched the film, so I'm sure you know the circumstance of that. In more contemporary theater, playwrights such as Strindberg and Miss Julie writes after her character kills himself, someone commits suicide. Business worries, said the businessman. Unrequited love, says the lady. Physical illness, says the sick man. Shattered hopes, says the failure. But it may be none or all of these, as the dead man concealed his real motive. Ibsen's famous drama, Hedda Gabler takes her own life with a gun. Two of Chekhov's characters, Ivanov from Ivanov, and in The Seagull, Trepolar, both meet their maker through suicide. More contemporaries, Arthur Miller's famous play, Death of a Salesman. Willie Loman, the salesman, commits suicide for the insurance money. During the play, he says, after all the highways and trains and the appointments and the years, you end up worth more than dead alive. This is a strange dichotomy, as during the play, he tells his son Biff, I am not a dime a dozen. I am Willie Loman. Norma Marsh's hit play, Night Mother, story of a mother trying to talk her daughter out of committing suicide. Spoiler, it doesn't work. She goes into the bedroom and we hear a gunshot followed by a scream by her mother, then a blackout. The play, Whose Life Is It Anyway?, a Broadway hit, originally cast as a man, Mary Tyler Moore went to play the role on Broadway. And it's all about a quadriplegic who wants to commit suicide, and the doctors don't want to give him this wish. A great play. If you haven't seen it, I saw it here in Los Angeles years ago with, now my brain's going to go.
Dreyfuss.
In LA. Oh.
Yes, that's right, Richard Dreyfuss. This is where I had written a play, a short monologue, and actually a part of a bigger structure about Tyler Clemente. Tyler Clemente was the young student, an 18-year-old student at Rutgers University. And he was being spied on by his roommate through a video chat. He was having another man over and was spied on with a video camera that he turned on remote, his roommate turned on remotely. He then found out by following the roommate's Twitter account that he planned on doing it again when Tyler was going to have another visitor. Fortunately for Tyler and his lover, which he was only identified as DB, he turned off the machine before. A lot of the talk shows, again, afterwards talked about this. These are all things that were actually written within the monologue. I hope this monologue helps you grasp the repercussions that his roommate's thoughtless actions had on another person. The dialogue was fictional, however, most of it is gleaned from reports and court transcripts. And if you want to read more about it, I would suggest reading the New Yorker's article about Tyler Clemente. How it ended, though, which I'll kind of let you know, is that the roommate went on trial. The grand jury found him culpable for about 13 different crimes. He was tried and found guilty of these crimes, but on appeal, he was only found guilty of one crime. So I'd like to thank Judy and my friends here at LMU, my friend Matt Thompson, and you guys for making this lecture a great fun. Just remember one thing, the whole world's an actor, but only Wells Fargo's a stage. Thank you very much.